Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm José.
And we've just been to see Wuthering Heights, in quotation marks.
Yes.
Written and directed by Emerald Fennell, obviously based on Emily Bronté's novel, I think her only novel, from 1847. A novel with which I have no familiarity. Like, I know the name.
Neither do I.
Never read
which
it.
is a plus.
Right. Yeah, well, it seems to be, because people are kind of responding to the adaptation as an aspect,
Yes.
you know, and saying, well, it's faithful here, it's not faithful here, and people always kind of have issues with that. It's not something that you and I ever particularly give much of a fuck about, but it must be said, when we haven't read the original work, we'll give less of a fuck.
Well, I'm glad of it, because I resent this question of how good an adaptation is it. I think the first question should be, how good a film is it? Right?
It's only the first question.
You could be, something that is a very unfaithful adaptation and be a great film.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think the first question really needs to be, what kind of film is it? So I'm glad to be able to counteract that, because it seems to me most of the reviews, I have yet to read a review of this film, in which I read some of them after our screening, which doesn't start with the adaptation aspect.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting though, because while I essentially agree with you, the first question is it good? And then we can get on to questions of adaptation. Not being attached to it as a novel that I read as a kid or anything like that. I also lack just that whole kind of, I'm not in that sphere, right?
Yes.
Whereas I was talking to Jen about it after the film. Jen and I went to get a bite to eat, as you know. And it's a novel that she read as a teenager. I think it probably speaks differently to women than it speaks to men anyway.
For sure.
So the question of adaptation to her was an important one, an interesting one. And one thing that she was saying to me, which is not something that I've got a sense of from the response. I've not read reviews, but I've heard response. People have been saying it departs from the book in all these ways. And what Jen was saying was, at least from her perspective, in a general tonal sense, it really nails what the book is about, which is that it's not a romance. I think someone like me, knowing nothing about it and just associating it with the Brontes, with Jane Austen and all that kind of crowd, generally speaking, I think of it as it's like women's lit, and it's about unrequited love and whatever it might be, windswept moors and long lost things, and what Jen was saying is it's not a romance, right? This is these are really toxic people, and they're not very nice to each other.
I think it's a romance.
What I'm getting to is she was saying, the response that I think I'm seeing a little bit from people of, this is not what I wanted, this is not what it is. Jen is saying that this actually is what it is. She came out of it saying, I had a good time. I was like...
Okay, so even you are framing this now through Jen as how good an adaptation it is.
only to start off with that point that, for someone for whom adaptation is an important point,
yes, that
is interesting to me. I think the automatic response you always expect from a book that's been adapted into a film is, they got this wrong. The book is better. And to hear that maybe I was actually impressed with this adaptation, I like what it did, is an interesting thing.
Well, I can't speak to it as an adaptation, but it is definitely feverish, intense. I think it is a romance.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about two people in love.
Yeah.
So it's a tragic romance, but that is at the heart of it, right? It's about these people whose souls are twined, right? You can't get more deliriously romantic than that, as far as I'm concerned. Right? It's obviously not a romantic comedy or something. Yeah, it is tragic. Nobody gets kind of, what they want in the film, and the film is, super melodramatic. It's all about misunderstandings and things misheard, that cause actions and so on. And of course, at the center of it is this idea of sex and death, right? They witness a hanging, on the soundtrack you hear these sex noises, and then the girls observe, that the condemned man has gotten a hard-on, via the hanging, right? So kind of,
That's setting the tone for you right away.
Right? So I loved it.
I had a very good time. And I didn't expect to, on the basis of it being by Emerald Fennell, who I didn't see Saltburn, but I remember being certainly iffy on Promising Young Women.
I was iffy on Promising Young Women. I thought it was kind of smug, actually. which Saltburn definitely wasn't, and I like that a lot more. And I like this even more than the other two.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, I found it kind of moving at the end, right? And visually, it's glorious. And I think, you know, for me, what people have been missing, what I have not read in any of the reviews so far, is that it's an expressionist film. Yeah, you know, it's a film in which the decor, the clothing, the background, is kind of meant to evoke the internal states of the protagonist. Right?
Yeah, sure.
You know, and I think that is what it does, right? And it does, to me, it does it beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, there's some real weirdnesses to it, and to what extent they're drawn from the novel and stuff, I don't know. But for some reason, I can't quite imagine that having a room decorated in the skin colour of the person to occupy it, not just their skin colour, but with freckles reproduced. I somehow feel like that may not have appeared in Bronte's novel. I mean, I would say that doesn't come under expressionist, but expressive and inventive and creative and weird. I mean, the whole introduction to the Grange, the house that she marries into, is one of, what the fuck is this place? You know, the wall made of hands and things like that. These kind of garish red floors that suggest just a weirdness of place and mood and tone, and I don't quite know what this place is, which is interesting because the people occupying it are not like that. In fact, of all the people in the film, they are Edgar and Isabella, the occupants of that place, and she marries Edgar, are, I would say, certainly the most likeable. They're the least conniving. They're the most kind of innocent, I suppose, in whatever way you might take that.
Well, you see, I think I find them all likable.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do. You know, and actually I think that's one of the film's strengths, right? You know, because Cathy is petulant, she's aggressive, she's mean, yes, she's all of that, right? But she's also like a dutiful daughter, and she's a woman in love, and like, you know, you get a full range of kind of the many things a person can be, right? And you know, perhaps it's like an anti-puritanical stance. That some people leave, you know, if you're mean in several circumstances, then the meanness is what defines you, right? Whereas I think kind of, you know, in this film all we see is she's many things, really. And none of them are what define her. Yeah, they're kind of, I mean, even at the end, she's very forgiving, of Nellie and so on, right? So the complexity of the multifacetedness of these characters is also what I really loved about the film.
I certainly found it incredibly difficult to sympathise with almost anybody. And at one point I actually leant over to it. This is the point where they begin the affair, which, you know, my understanding is the physical affair is not reproduced from the novel. The novel kind of remains distant and kind of longing. Here they engage in a physical affair that's quite steamy, and we see it. and it's the point at which he offers to kill her husband, and he really means it. And she kind of rebuffs it, and kind of just dismisses him. I leant over to Jen and went, "Is this supposed to be romantic?" And she went, "No, I've been telling you the whole time." Like, so there's a different.
But that's the height of romance. What are you talking about?
Because I was thinking, like, I don't
kill for you.
Well, sort of. But I was thinking, like, I'm not really getting these characters, and I wasn't getting that feeling. And I was feeling like the sense of how horrible these people are. It's not just these two; it's also Nellie, you know, who takes the opportunity, having been treated badly by Cathy, to invite Heathcliff to hear Cathy being rude about him, mean about him, which drives them apart for so long. And Isabella, who begins as innocent, very young, she's Edgar's ward. When she gets married to Heathcliff, she gets married knowing that there's a purpose to this. He doesn't love her. That's not what this is about. It's an opportunity to hurt Cathy, and that she buys into that and really seems to enjoy it.
Yes,
you know.
Well, she discovers a sexuality she didn't know that she had.
Well, that as well. but like in the writing letters, when you first see the letter that she writes, the first letter, which is like, "He treats me so badly, you have to come and help me, help me, help me." It says, you know, you're thinking, wow, she's really, you know, that she means that. And then you get the understanding, oh, they're in this together. She likes writing these letters, and she says, you know, they're in this together. So that was interesting. But yeah, I'm thinking to myself, like, it doesn't mean it can't be romantic, but none of these people.
But it is romantic.
I'm not saying it can't be, but I'm thinking to myself, like, these people I don't get on with. I don't want them to be together. I don't want good things to happen for them. I don't feel that their long lost love must be fulfilled.
The film is almost the definition of a type of 19th century romanticism.
Yeah,
which is it is about souls and the extent to which people would go to for the people they're in love, right? So from Isabel's perspective, she's in love with this man and she's willing to do anything for him, and and that includes her self-degradation and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
right. And Heathcliff is willing to kill for Cathy. Yeah. So I mean, that is almost like a definition. That you love somebody so much, you're kind of willing to go to any lengths for them. Which is very kind of contrary to, current modes of thinking, perhaps. Though, not if the response in the audience was anything to go by, right?
No, the audience seemed to be into it and respond.
I heard sobs.
Yeah.
So,
but it is interesting, I think, to me that there was something that I think the film was failing to sell me on in this respect. Let's think about the ending specifically, where Cathy has lost a baby already. And it's gone untreated. So she's wound up with septicemia and she dies from it. Heathcliff races to try and see her. He doesn't get there in time. Actually, Edgar is quite nice to him and says, having known that they've had this affair, basically says, like, you don't want to see her, but he lets him in and he doesn't object and all that kind of stuff. And the music swells. And then he cries next to her dead body. He wants to bring her back to life, but he can't. He doesn't want to believe that she's dead. And then we get what is kind of, I would say, well, I was going to say it's a trope. What tropes kind of aren't there, I suppose, in a story that's, nearly 200 years old. But the trope that I'm going to mention here is the one of flashing back to when they were kids, which the film introduces them as. And the time when he sacrificed himself. He took the beating from her dad, saying that missing his birthday was his fault. We flash back to that and things he was saying, and we see... And it's him talking about never leaving her. I'll never leave you. I won't leave you till the day I die, and even after that, forevermore, sort of thing. Very romantic. And the film is selling this extremely romantic ending, the love that's... And I was sitting there going, what am I supposed to be feeling here? Because I couldn't tell if I was supposed to be being moved with this, because I didn't feel this for the characters, and I felt such animosity towards them, I suppose you could say. I was thinking, is the fact that it's doing this tropey thing and trying to sell me this big emotional tragic moment, does it really mean it, or is it parodying it somehow?
It means it, and I felt it. Yeah. I mean, I think, again, I saw this in an interview with the director that she wanted the film to be like her experience of a 15-year-old girl, of reading the book as a 15-year-old girl. Yeah, and kind of what that communicated to her. And I think it absolutely succeeds in doing that.
I think it definitely does that.
And that ending is part of it. Yeah, it's a kind of, it's this love that's eternal, that is beyond life itself in their minds, and so on. I loved all of that. I really only have one quibble with the film, and that's Jacob Elordi. Who I think is beautiful. Yes, he looks the part of Heathcliff. Yeah, he sounds great. You hear kind of the northern accent, but I just don't think he's got the dimension of sexual threat. That is required in the film. He is kind of, he's meant to be someone who's like absolutely sexually self-confident, who can be dangerous with it. Right, and I don't get that sense of danger from him, though that could just be me, right? Like, I think all the other dimensions he really fulfills, and certainly he looks as handsome as you can possibly imagine Heathcliff looking. I mean, you see him performing it, yes, and you see women responding to him as, if they're crazy about him, but to me, he just doesn't evoke a kind of,
he's lacking a certain something.
A confident sexuality and a kind of a sexual threat. I'm thinking here of somebody like Errol Flynn does, right, or Brad Pitt does, and I don't get that with Elordi.
I think I know what you mean. Although I bought him in that respect, I suppose, but I do have a sense of what you mean. I thought he was a little bit one note, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe the character is written a little too flatly. Maybe most of the characters are to my eye, but I did like him. What about the scene in which he kind of presents himself to Isabella? And
I loved all of that. I love that the film incorporates almost like this kind of porny SM kind of very overt dimension to that, because that then also means it's as much the performance of an idea than the performance of an action.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're role playing there, right? And you think, are they really role playing? Is it So, for example, if you contrast that with the scene that they witness, from the attic, kind of, the man putting the bit of the horse on the woman's mouth and so on, you get a sense that's real. Yes, that kind of,
real in what sense? Sorry, I mean, I thought it's clear those characters are also engaging in a form of play and consensual.
But it's
because I think she says to him, pull it harder.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. She's enjoying it.
Yeah, okay, so I just wanted to be clear on what you were saying.
Because
what's the difference between real and whatever else you're talking about?
Well, there's a difference between role-playing, which you might get off on or not, and what you're getting off on is actually the performance of domination and submission, right? Yeah, rather than, kind of somebody making you bleed, right? Or what? Yeah, and then there are people who really like to be made to bleed, right? Yeah. So I thought what they witnessed in the attic was two people who really got off on that kind of sexuality and were at it.
So really want to make each other bleed.
Yeah, hit me harder or whatever. And then I felt with Heathcliff and Isabel, that it was that they were both getting off on the role playing. Yeah, because you actually never really see. In fact, you don't. Yeah, you don't see. I mean, you see her in chains, and you see him commanding her.
She's on all fours like a dog.
Yeah, but actually, you don't see him hurt her physically the way that you kind of do.
No,
really.
well, you don't see sex between them.
Yeah,
exactly. That was a sex scene that we were observing from up in the attic.
That's right.
Whereas that between them.
Although
her age may have an element to do with that. I mean, the thing that's interesting to me about the scene in which he, I'll use the phrase presents himself to her or whatever, but kind of gets his consent from her and
I thought it was a very good scene.
It was an interesting scene because, it has this play on consent. Yes. And the thing that's interesting to me, it's walking an interesting line, that scene, because he starts off with, he knows that she fancies him. She's very young, and clearly she's never had sex. She's new to all this, because he says, do you know how this works? Do you want me to show you? Yes. Right? That's how it starts. And then the questions get more and more kind of in depth, but not questions. It's I will be like this to you. Do you want me to stop?
Yes.
I will be like this to you. Do you want me to stop? I will marry you just to get at Cathy, and it has nothing to do with any love for you. Do you want me to stop? And at every point she has the opportunity to say, yes, I want you to stop. And I think that if she said that, he would stop. But there is also a mood in there. It's not like a sterile sitting down at a desk going, let's arrange the terms. There's a mood going on there. He's standing over her. She's young and very new to everything he's doing. So there is a kind of that sense of sexual threat that you think you're saying is missing from him. I feel there. Like I say, I think that he would stop. I don't think it's a threat of he would be abusive and take advantage, all that kind of stuff. I don't see that at all. But there is the sense of someone who expects a certain answer, and the questions he asks imply that answer, and it feels almost that she must give it.
Well, I don't think she must give it. I think she's absolutely turned on by the whole idea of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that's a very successful scene.
I think it really works. But I just think it's interesting. I think there is a line.
But interestingly, the turn on is again the idea rather than the action. Because actually, after all the consent, what do you see? Nothing. Yeah, nothing. Right? So, so anyway, I thought that was very interesting, and I like that very much, really. which again kind of is interesting, because, and I think it's worth kind of making these contrasts, between these relationships. So, the relationship between Isabel and Heathcliff is one of domination and submission. Mm-hmm. The relationship between Heathcliff and Cathy is one of equals, who torture each other. I mean, they begin as obviously, and this is maybe something that we need to underline, because, the film has all these assumptions about class, and possibilities, and how you're stuck in your role in life, and therefore Heathcliff and Cathy can't be together because they're so far apart in class, right? So that definitely is there in the film, but they're equal in the sense of their feeling for each other and their devotion to each other, and the tortures of each other.
See, I'm not sure actually I agree with that, because it's something that this was coming kind of. I was thinking about after coming out of the film, because I wasn't getting it in the film. But what he wants is something that she could, were she willing, give to him. She could leave her husband, let's say. I know like the social conditions at the time might mean that's difficult for some reason, or might have certain consequences, but she could give herself to him in a more full way than she does with having the affair with him. And when she won't do that, like when she turns down the offer to kill her husband, he responds very badly to that. They see this differently. She is getting something that she wants that he is not.
No, the film is working through absolutes of feeling and situation. I think the film makes very clear, if Cathy doesn't marry Edgar, the whole household starves. Yeah. Yeah. So, she's got to marry him. It's almost like there's no... So afterwards she says, oh, you only heard part of my conversation. But, kind of... I mean, even if you'd heard the other part of the conversation, which is that she loves Heathcliff, what... Does that mean that she would run off with Heathcliff? I don't think so. Right? I think the conventions of the time and so on means that, either she marries, or she had... or the whole household is ruined. Yeah, that is the and it's what you learn after. I mean, even the father is being supported by the husband, and the maid is being supported by the husband, and like everybody's being supported, right, because of her marriage. Yeah, right. So I think you get a sense there of she had to do that. She didn't have an option, really.
Well, there is something about that the film isn't convincing me of, though, which is her sense of, I suppose, obligation to that. Because she is, I think, so mean and so dismissive and can be so cruel and so on, she seems to enjoy everything that she's doing, in a way. That I think if the film wanted to convince me of her sense of, I would love this, but I can't have it because of this reason.
I don't have any problems with that. And
I just don't feel the film's
you often see women
delivering on that.
You often see women in song and in novels and in art and in life kind of, doing that I hate you, but I love you kind of thing all over the place. So, I mean, her cruelty doesn't even come across as cruelty to me. As a kind of a self-defensiveness that comes out of, like, not being at ease with your feelings, and which often involve an insecurity. Does the other person love you back? And how and to what extent?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see what you're saying. I didn't feel the same way. I felt that if the film wants me to understand really deeply the reasons that she won't give this up, sorry.
I just wanted to say, I actually shouldn't have said women, because it's people. You see that in gay romances, for example.
Right. Yeah. Well, so what I was going to say is, like, if the film really wants to sell me on the depth of obligation and the reason that she won't give this up to pursue a full romance, a full love, a full entwining of soul with Heathcliff, I think it needed to do a better job. That's where I feel like I was sat in the film going, I don't get what these people want. Right, and that was like a real fundamental question that I was struggling to answer, and I think that is a problem that the film isn't addressing.
I had no problem with that. Like it was, I mean, to me, it was absolutely clear. I mean, kind of, what each is looking is for that feverish state of love completed, right? That's kind of either looking for the other. That's, and the film is a whole series of obstacles, social and personal and financial and so on, that kind of prevents them from being together in those ways, right? And the only time that they're permitted to be together is when it's forbidden, so that it can only really be partial and furtive and stolen, right? So that's kind of the moments where you actually do see them together. So I love that.
Let's talk about the look of the film. You described it as expressionist.
Yes.
So, how's the film working with an expressionist kind of vocabulary?
Well, if by expressionism is meant, that the externals are designed in such a way as to reveal interior states of being, then that is what the film is doing, really.
Like burning red skies.
Yeah, and sometimes things that don't kind of logically make sense, right? So she's in bed, she's got septicemia, and there are all of these, I don't know what they were, worms or, floating around the bed, leeches, that were like almost floating on top of her,
like
right?
fanning out.
It's there's not realistic imagery.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the film is not drawing on that, and it's kind of interesting, to look at other versions of, I think particularly the Andrea Arnold version, which is so wedded to a type of realism, the mud, and so on. This is like completely the opposite of that, right? And so I think, that is, how the film is working in that kind of expressionist style. And it's being really, I don't know, kind of clever with it, right? So it is actually kind of using almost like a history of visual imagery to convey that. I mean, so some of the images of Heathcliff were from Caspar David Friedrich's painting of Wonder Above the Sea of Fog.
Wonder Above the Sea of Fog,
right? And it was a very clear kind of quotation, right?
Yeah.
And then there are other images that I can't pinpoint the source, but just to say that I've seen them before, right? Like, her wedding dress, or, that chunky 1950s jewelry, right? Or even the way that the clothes kind of evoke a kind of, a 1950s new look kind of, dresses. And so I think kind of the film is really using all of that to convey interior states of being. Yeah.
I mean, I think the film has employed the services of an extremely talented lighting director, an extremely talented cinematographer, an extremely talented costume designer.
Yes.
I mean, these things are lush and they are presented to you, and you understand, I think, kind of implicitly what they're telling you, even if, like me, you don't understand women's fashion.
But also, I think my idea of cinema, right, or where I begin, is kind of, what pleasures is the film offering you? And they could be varied, right? Like, I mean, I always argue, that one of the pleasures of art cinema is, what was the film about? Right? Like, and kind of you're giving you enough clues to think that through, and to what extent you think that through. But I think in this one, kind of some of the things that have to be acknowledged are those visual pleasures. I mean, I think if you go to the movies and you're seeing Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi looking like that in this movie, in these huge close-ups, right? They're both so incredibly beautiful. I think, kind of some of their close-ups together kissing are like Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift in A Place in the Sun or something. They're almost like they're beyond beautiful or something, right? It's kind of, to me, it was just an enormous pleasure to be able to see that, right? And the costumes and the decor and the jewelry, and actually just some of the shots, which I thought were like terrific. And again, kind of inspired by feeling rather than realism, right?
Yeah.
All those bottles going up to the ceiling.
That's the one that occurred to me, when they're going to back to Wuthering Heights and the dad's dead of gambling and alcoholism, and the bottles are piled high and they're bright green, and you think, like, it's not... Yeah, okay, they're big piles of bottles, but they're not really realistic, but it's expressive, it doesn't matter. There's this story that's sort of reasonably well known. I forget which film it was and which director this was, but there was a thing about some director being asked during a night scene by someone, where's the light come from? This is at night, where's the lighting come from? And he went, same place as the music. Like, films are expressive, right? They work in expressive modes. They don't have to be realistic all the time. If something makes sense on an emotional level. It has a feeling to it. It doesn't matter. Like when she's running across the field with that giant white wedding dress. Like, would she be doing that? I don't think so. She'd be more careful of her dress. It doesn't matter. It looks amazing, and that's the point of that.
Yes, and all those shots of the moors, and Elordi riding the horse through the moors, and the running through the moors, and I mean, kind of all of that. I think is meant to kind of evoke that frenzy of feeling, right? That is what the whole film is about, right? And
actually, the setting of Wuthering Heights itself, the house, which is kind of, it seems to be, although it's like up a hill, it's also kind of in like a mountainside kind of. It's in like a quarry kind of. You feel the sense of barrenness and depredation, and this place is just going under compared to the house 5 miles down the hill, which has beautiful grounds,
kind of classic
on the
Georgian.
Exactly.
Kind of.
Like I don't know how realistic that setting is, but and even realistic the architecture is, because it's kind of really square, kind of clean but grey, sort of industrial thing.
Yeah, it's Palladian, I think. That style of architecture,
right?
With columns and so on.
But you, to whatever extent, it's kind of realistic of the place and the time and so on. I don't know, but you feel the emotional tone it's setting for you very richly.
So I loved it, really.
I was really surprised at how much I liked it.
Yeah, I didn't expect to. So we've had friends kind of writing about it on Facebook, and again, a lot of it is adaptation and so on. And some people have been like absurdly negative about it, right? And often by surprise, one of the things that kind of surprised me was seeing so many female critics, being so dismissive of a film, that is written and directed and produced by a woman, by women, like as Margot Robbie was the producer, and Emerald Fennell, kind of, I think, wrote and directed it. Yeah, so it is a kind of a film that's entirely driven, by a woman's point of view, first of all, right? Both kind of, So, if Mulvey's argument was that there were 3 looks in the cinema, the look of the character, the look of the director or cinematographer, and then the look of the audience onto it, and that they were generally all male, right? Kind of, this is the opposite, this is a movie in which the looks are all female.
Our main character is female.
That's right.
Obviously Heathcliff gets a lot of looking, but it's mostly Cathy. And
I mean, the film is about Cathy, right? Heathcliff is the object of desire, of tumult, but it's her look really that drives it, right? And then it's kind of
the creative eye is female.
Is female,
and the audience to which it's primarily intended, I think, is a female one.
I think so. Though obviously, kind of we saw it and we're not female and we loved it anyway, but it's clear that the film is not addressed at us in a way. I mean, I think it's kind of a fascinating film in that respect, and one that deserves more respect, right? By virtue of being so. So I was surprised by how dismissive some female critics were.
It cost $80 million to make.
Yes.
That's the budget I can see, and it's made 126. It's making good money, and it will make more. It's been out for it's been out for a week and a half, 2 weeks.
I read 150 million so far on the wiki page. So, it's a huge hit, frankly, right? Like, I mean, I read that it's interesting because I think in the US it performed below expectation. Right? Yeah, and in England it's been the biggest hit of the last couple of weeks, and I think that success is also being reproduced worldwide, and I think it's understandable, really, because Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie, they're both big stars at the moment, but they're Australian stars. The novel.
Is Jacob Elordi Australian?
Yes.
Oh, is he? I thought he was English. Okay.
No, he's Australian.
Fair enough.
So he's Australian Basque. So I think his father is of a Basque background, so Spanish.
Yeah, you're quite right. Interesting.
Yeah.
His
So
dad immigrated to Australia from Bilbao when he was 8 to escape Franco.
yes. So and I think that kind of classic obviously has a different weight on American culture than in British culture, where it seems like practically everybody has read it, right? So I'm not surprised that it still did incredibly well in its first week. It was the #1 film in the country, but it performed below expectations. I think it made 36 million as opposed to the 50 or so that they expected to make.
It is also, characters are speaking in dialogue that is at some point drawn directly from the novel, and at other points is in the style of the time. So it's not. This isn't one of these like adaptations where people are just speaking like they are now, and that has a certain distancing effect that might have an effect on the box office.
Anyway, it's an incredible success, and I think it kind of the combination of it being this female kind of driven film about female desire, and it being a success, it being successful at kind of conveying that to a contemporary audience. Again, to me it signifies that even if you don't like it, there are very interesting things in the film that are worth kind of experiencing and reflecting upon.
Yeah, I really recommend it.
Yeah, so do I.
At the cinema as well, because
Oh,
those close-ups you're talking about. I mean, it's funny. Early on, mind you, I suppose early on it's when they were kids, but early on, with the first half of the film, I was thinking there was a lot of focus on close-up here, and I felt I wanted more variety. There was also some editing that was extremely rapid that I wasn't really into. Although I could see how editing around like the dad, for instance, played by Martin Clunes, who's kind of violent, has a temper, and so on.
He was wonderful.
That editing is so rapid, and it's just from close up to close up to close up, really. And so it's very hectic, and it's trying to build in this visual energy. It's not a sophisticated way of doing it, but it is effective. But I was thinking, I'm not sure I'm really on board with this. I don't like this. But then when you get to close-ups of Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi, especially Jacob Elordi looking brooding and sultry, and from below, looking through his eyebrows, kind of thing, you go, these are worth it for their own sake.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's definitely a film to see on a big screen. We haven't talked about certain things that I found impressive, and I'll be very brief about them. I mean, the person that I think is worth mentioning is Hong Chow as Nellie Dean, because there was controversy about the casting of Elordi, right? Because some people have argued that you really need to cast a person of color.
Yeah, he's supposed to be.
Which I'm not convinced by.
I think he's supposed to be at the very least ethnically ambiguous, I think, as this foundling.
Well, I mean, I think, from what I've read in the novel, he's described as dark-skinned gypsy, right? Which, frankly, I think Jacob Elordi doesn't look too far from that, right? But be that as it may, I think the film interestingly uses blind casting, in other dimensions, right? And the primary one is Nellie, right? And I think when Hong Chow first appeared, I thought, oh no, right? Like, it's going to be one of those blind castings. And actually, she ended up being terrific. It's a terrific performance that she gives. So I really appreciated it. And the other thing that we haven't mentioned is the songs by
Charlie XCX.
Charlie XCX, which again I think is another layer, of this really interesting collaborative project by women, because the songs have they're almost at odds with the images, right? Because the images are very like MTV, like you said. Yeah, you have this frenzy of kind of movement, and intensity of color. And then some of the songs come on and they're almost like, I don't know, medieval ballads or something. They have a different kind of, and they're really about again, women feeling in this kind of light soprano voice, which I thought is one of the things that adds kind of an interesting layer to the film.
Yeah, I'm also not familiar with Charlie XCX's music. I'm familiar kind of with her image, and I suppose I'd assumed from her image that her music was kind of electronic and quite aggressive. And maybe it is, and maybe she's doing something different for the work she's doing here. I don't know, but it wasn't what I expected of that. Knowing that she was associated with the film.
Yes,
it was interesting.
Yes, me too. I mean, I don't know anything about her, right? So it kind of, but also because of just the pictures I've seen of her. I don't know. I expected some hip hoppy type thing, right? Rather than. It's almost like, I don't know, a Joni Mitchell. What's the woman who did the Wuthering Heights song, the Heathcliff?
Oh, I don't know.
Kate Bush, yeah, which also has that kind of light soprano voice. So yeah, kind of. I think many things to admire and to unpack, really. So I think it was, for me, kind of an intense experience. I mean, I loved watching it. I found it really beautiful and sexy, and romantic. And then it moved me, at the end. So, yeah.
I don't feel exactly the same way, but I did like it very much.
Yes.
And it's a really interesting film to have seen. And compared to all of the talk about, they're going to fuck it up. They're going like Charlie XCX is an example, I think, of something people were worried about, kind of because of the implicit kind of, they're going to modernise it in all these ways, and they put all this sex in it that wasn't there and so on. And to find that, well, the film is just working for me though. So whatever it's doing, maybe people who are very familiar with the book may be disappointed in certain things. I don't know. Worked for me.
Yes,
that's all I can say.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, I think with me. Because sometimes when you have read the book, you can't stop yourself from comparing it. And it's happened to me, and you're invariably disappointed because, particularly if you love the book, right, the film is inherently going to be different in some ways, right? It's a different medium, it's a different experience, so it's almost like, kind of disappointment is a given, really. Unless you just give in yourself to watching a film, right? And in that sense, I think, people will be very surprised because it's a film that has a lot to offer.
Yes, it does.
All right, on that note, thank you all very much for listening. We're eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and YouTube Music. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies, and Blue Sky, eavesdropping.bsky.social, and the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.